I, Vaishnavi Nair, welcome you all on behalf of IEEE Pune section for the day 3 and the 5th session of our Pune section student young professionals Women in Engineering Congress 2020. PSYWC 2020 envisions to provide its members a platform with dynamic career opportunities, path to connect with academicians, scholars, and entrepreneurs from diversified fields, and a rewarding experience of blending cultures. The flagship event of IEEE Pune section has always been a colloquium that brings together youth to the successful professionals and experts who endow their ideologies and success mantra to the youngsters. I would hereby like to call upon Dr. Pradeep Mani sir, Student Activities Chair, IEEE Pune section, to give a welcome note to our speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Vaishnavi. A very good morning to one and all present. Uh, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our today's guest speaker, Dr. Mishra, for making himself available and sparing his valuable time to share his thoughts with all the budding students who have gathered here for the Student Congress. Sir, I would like to also thank you on behalf of our Pune section, our Honorable Chairman Girish Khilare sir, our Vice Chair Dr. Jagdish Chaudhary, our Secretary Dr. Amar Butsade, and all our EXECOM members for you sparing and you being with us for this event. So, with this, once again, I would like to thank you and all the participants who have gathered. I think, yes, surely you will enjoy the session because Sir has been very active in this IEEE, what you can say, a very active volunteer, I should say, and he have been arranging many activities, which I already said that I had been part of some of them. And in future also, Sir, we would always like to be associated with you and take your help in further improving the activities in the Pune section as well as your guidance for our students also. So thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vaishnavi. You can continue.
Thank you so much. Mr. Puneet Kumar Mishra is the current head of Satellite Antenna and Characterization, Test and Design Section at the Indian Space Research Organization. He has 14 years of experience in RF characterization of 45 satellites and 280 antennas of ISRO's program from ultra high frequency to Ka band. He is responsible for conceiving, preparing, specification, installing and commissioning of the world's first and largest compact range with 10-meter quiet zone. Also responsible for Asia's largest subsystem level magnetic field measurement facility. Puneet sir played key role in establishing spacecraft level anechoic chamber for EMC testing. He's been awarded with ISRO Young Scientist Award, IETE IRSI Young Scientist Award, and ASI ISRO Space Gold Medal. He has also developed a payload to study the RF blackout phenomena. Puneet sir has published over 45 research papers. He is currently volunteering as the chair at the IEEE Bangalore section and as the secretary at the IEEE India Council. Sir, we are extremely honored to have you here with us today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vaishnavi, for your generous introduction, as well as thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for your kind words and joining this morning session. And also, I would like to thank the girl who has contacted me for this wonderful interaction, which I will be taking now. Very important. My video has gone. Yeah. So for any section, it is very important to have this engineering young professional as well as the students conference, so that all the demographic of members, they are being engaged with section activity. And also, this is a kind of a conglomeration once in a year where each of these meet, network, and collaborate. But unfortunately, COVID-19 that networking is not possible, physical networking, but definitely not the effort of Pune section. They have gone virtual and they are going to do it. So thank you very much once again for inviting me. And the topic given phone call, so I'm not. So please bear with me. Are available only through, but I will try to share this basic so that you have a broader perspective that you are not only having opportunity in ISRO, beyond ISRO as well, but are in space. And
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but your voice is too much lagging.
now it is better.
Vaishnavi, please.
Sir, you're very low, sir. Not audible.
Oh, still now it is not audible, or now it is better? Hello.
Sir, your audio is too low.
Sorry, I don't know why, because I'm using my microphone as well.
Okay.
Okay, I will try again 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Now it is okay. Hello.
Yes, sir. Better, sir.
Yeah, it's better, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So I will be trying to cover the entire global space industry. So just to give perspective, how much is the magnitude of global space industry? So that global space industry is close to $360 billion. Of India's space programs, total global industry, 3%. That's why this percentage have more participation from government of India has opened the Indian space sector, that is very popularly now known as unlocking of Indian space sector. That not only ISRO but also startups and entire $360 billion space industry. Now coming out of this $360 billion, what are the components of this $60 billion industry? So satellite, major chunk comes from the satellite industry, and close to $220 billion comes from this alone. And in this, most money comes from services, the form of telecommunication, and aviation, maritime, road and rail, earth observation, agriculture. Change decision means how grow or not. Disaster mitigation, suppose cyclone is coming or some, there is a burst of cloud. So how can mitigate? That is disaster mitigation. Meteorological, resource map, and resource mapping is important. Where is the
I'm
water?
really sorry to interrupt you again, sir, but you're not audible. The attendees are not being able to listen to you clearly, sir.
Sorry, Vaishnavi, I don't know why it is happening, but I'm trying my best to be as close as possible. Okay. Now it is
Okay, sir. So at the start, I guess there was no problem. You were clearly audible.
Shall I join again? It may solve if suppose it solves the purpose.
Yes, sir. If you could please try that.
Okay, I'm trying again. I will. Then you give
Okay.
me a panel after some time. Okay.
Yes, sir. Shivraj will be. Shivraj, please do the needful. Attendees, I'm really sorry for the inconvenience caused. We will resume soon.
Now it is better.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Now it is better.
Yes, sir. Better, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Hope it continues to be better.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So out of this 360 billion, 220 billion comes from satellite. Then close to 20 billion comes from satellite manufacturing. Close to 10 billion comes from launch, and close to 70 billion comes from the ground equipment. Remaining 130 billion comes from space flight, government spending, etc. Then you might have seen that all the whose are high net worth individuals like Google's Larry, SpaceX Elon Musk, Amazon's Jeff, Facebook Zuckerberg, as well as Richard Branson, they all are investing heavily in this space industry. In fact, SpaceX is planning to launch 4,000 satellites in our by the year 2030. Well, they have invested more than $1 in SpaceX satellite. Facebook also planning to have satellite that will provide internet access to Africa as well as third world countries. Richard Branson is using his money for reusable space tourist plane. Now coming to Indian startups, there is a terminology called new space age. So new space is the emergence of entrepreneurial sector by these entrepreneurs. They are adopting a nimbler approach to space related product and services like new technologies, cheaper components, technology focused on finance means related to less finance, as well as they are also trying to have business accelerator and space habitats. Coming to Indian space startups, Team Indus, Zovian, Astrom, Exceed Space, Bellatrix are new space players active. So you can see that there are a lot of new space players, and you may be happy to know that your College of Engineering Pune, they have also developed one nano satellite or student satellite few years before, and that was launched by ISRO. So Pune is also not behind. In fact, I can say that students from Pune section, they are also contributing to the space sector, and hopefully some of you in near future may be contributing. That is my assumption as well as hope. And I would also like to thank you for providing me this opportunity. Now coming to career opportunities in ISRO. So if you are a BE BTech student, you can directly join as a scientist engineer SC. We will call it as a scientist engineer SC. If you see the 7th pay commission matrix, then entry will be at the entry level 10, where basic is close to 73,000. That is the basic, and then over and above your traveling allowance and HRAs, all those things. So it will be more than a lakh rupees per month. If you are an ME and MTech student, then still you will be joining as a scientist in SC. But advantage is if you are joining as a MTech against MTech opening, you will be getting the promotion in 2 years. So that is the advantage for being ME. Whereas BE and BTech students will be getting promotion after 2 years. So I will explain those things, how it is happening also. In case you are a PhD student, you will be directly joining at the level 11, and that is called scientist engineer SD. And the basic of L11 is 75,000. So then we add all the additional benefits. Again, it is going one exact numbers I don't know, but this will be the number. Then what are the various levels in ISRO? This starts from scientist engineers SC, then it becomes SD after 4 years. That is the minimum residency period required to go from SC level to SD level. Then once you have, that is called a residency period. So once you have been in SC, then after years of completing residency, based on your country, ISRO will be called for an interview for the promotion. You have to give an interview, and based on your performance, SD. And from SD to SC again 4 years, and the same process. SC to SF again 4 years, same process. SF is your level 13, which initially used to be called as higher grade pay band. And SF onwards, every promotion, SF to SG, SG to OS, and OS to OS is outstanding. This is distinguished. This is the largest, means the highest position one. They all are that 5 factors. Now coming to the eligibility criteria, taking electronics and communication, mechanical and computer. These three are the major areas in which ISRO takes entry level engineers. And there is a centralized recruitment that is called ISRO centralized ICRB. Every year, an entrance exam is being conducted. First, you have to apply for that. Then, we called for written test. Very, very simple. Your basics are clear, mostly qualified for interview. And then there will be interview where you going to actually almost 1:15. Suppose one post is there, then 15 candidates will be called for interview. And those who are performing well in interview, they will be getting selected. So this is the entire process of selection in ISRO. For BTech level, for MEM Tech, there is a specialized recruitment that is not part of the ICRB. This is based on the requirement basis. So you have to keep on watching ISRO website under vacancies. So you will be getting this information. They will be also publishing popular newspapers, mostly dailies. Similar case is the case for P. However, beyond this EC computer, there are also specialized requirement for chemical engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, architecture. Also for MSc students, also there are ISRO, mostly from maths, physics, science. So these are the major areas because ISRO works in almost all these areas. But yes, major chunk comes from electronics and communication, mechanical engineering. So almost 70% openings are for these three branches, and remaining 30% chemical, electrical, space, geoscience, and sometimes even botany. So with this brief, I will stop. Now I would like to take the questions so that it becomes more interactive. And I would like to know that what students they are looking from. Then I will be more than happy to respond that, because this was the basic information that I will share with respect to the space industry. What are the regulatory requirements? Any answer the questions?
Yes, sir. So please could you brief us about how is the work culture in the Indian Space Research Organization?
Yeah, very good question. So in ISRO, actually work environment is very open, distinguished scientist level. Anybody can provide his or her input for any particular technical topic. Suppose you feel that this thing has to be done in this way, or you a lacuna in the process was by using this, you can raise your and you can convey your thoughts the meetings. So it is a very open culture and very supportive for the women, I will say. And there is a special care is being taken for the women scientists, and there is no whether you have English medium school or from your local language school. Actually, it is not the way how you speak, it is the technical knowledge bring you that matters in school. And if you are an honest, nobody is going to stop you. Anything else?
Yes, sir. So we have questions coming up from our attendees. So Devan Srivastava wants to know what is the best way to apply for internship in ISRO?
Uh, that is a very good question, and I keep getting this question from various students. But unfortunately, we are very open for student internship from outside, because what happens due to security reasons, allowed to have a student internship from anyone. But yes, if you know any ISRO employee and he is having any ward, so along with that employee's ward, you can apply for internship, then it will be considered. And you can get either BTech 3 months or for MTech, it is allowed from 6 months, even 1 year internships are allowed. But only thing, in your team, at least ward of one ISRO employee should be there.
Yes, sir. So we have another very good question from Gaurav Dulani. He says, how does ISRO take care of the space waste?
Yeah, very good question. So till now, before few years, there was no conscious effort was being made to collect these space waste. But now everybody knows that the geosynchronous orbit is only one orbit, and everybody wants to use that orbit. So when we are launching the satellite, or when we are configuring the satellite, we are taking care the requirement of deorbiting the satellite from the intended orbit to a graveyard orbit. Actually, there is an orbit called graveyard orbit, where all the satellites which have completed their life cycle, they will be put in that orbit, which is close to 20,000 kilometers from Earth. And over the years, in next 100 to 200 years, they will be slowly coming to the environment of the Earth. And because of the higher diffractions as well as mechanical when any vehicle or any satellites enters in the atmosphere of Earth, because of atmospheric drag, huge amount of energy is generated, and that particular, if proper care is not only, you can see, that's why there is a technology called re-entry technology. So satellites, they are not being protected by thermal tiles, which is saving the satellite from coming inside the environment. So these satellites, they are normal satellites and they are not having those thermal protective tiles. So when they are entering in the Earth atmosphere, they will be simply burnt. So this is the way how first satellite operation satellite, once it completes, we will be sending in the graveyard orbit, and then from graveyard orbit, slowly they will be coming to the Earth atmosphere. The Earth atmosphere, because of the huge amount of heat generated because of re-entry, they will be simply burnt. So this is the process how a space waste is taken.
Okay, sir. So as you said, there are no internship opportunities provided due to the security reasons. But we have a question from our panelists, our attendees saying that, are there any collaboration opportunities for the final year student projects?
Actually, collaboration is with respect to the educational institute, not at the student level. So educational institute can collaborate with ISRO, or they can propose that they want to have a student satellite, and then they can submit their proposal to ISRO. Because there is a designated team that is called CBPO, Capacity Building Program Office. So there is a one dedicated person who is handling this all the request. In fact, ISRO goes one step beyond. You need not make the full satellite, only make the payload. And ISRO provides you a nano satellite where you can integrate your payload, and then launching is also taken care by ISRO free of cost. And whatever the test requirements are there for qualify your payload for a space application, that is those facilities are also going to be provided free of cost by ISRO. But this initiative has to be taken by your educational rather than a student.
Okay, sir. And if someone wants to develop a satellite, so what is the standard way to proceed at a sectional level?
Okay, so I suppose you are opening a startup. So satellite technology is really a rocket science, I will tell. It is not easy to start, and within few years, 1 or 2 years, you are going to achieve. But yes, these days there is a concept of nano eco satellites or CubeSats. Those kind of satellites, there are plenty of material available on the internet, and take help of that. And then you should start developing a team which is having multidisciplinary, because you need a team where mechanical engineers which can work on the satellite structure, satellite mechanisms, as well as satellite thermal protection system, an electrical engineer or electronics and communication engineer work on the transmitter, receiver, telemetry, as well as suppose some sensors. So on sensor electronics, so on those areas your team should be able to work and understand what are the requirements, what should be the configuration of the satellite. Then third important, should have some people who work on the sensors, mostly the star sensor or sun sensor or gyros, which is going to provide the actuation system for your satellite. So these are the three major important, and a computer science guy is required, which can provide a kind of a brain to your satellite, which is called onboard computer, so that all the health parameters, they are being taken at appropriate time, as well as that information can be sent to the ground station antenna, which you can establish in your laboratory, or you can utilize in the laboratory where already this kind of ground station antennas are available. So these are the major areas. So you definitely 4 5 students team which work on these technology, and then over the years definitely successful, and you then you can increase your size and start working. But before going directly, your objective should not be making the satellite. Then you will not be successful. Your objective should be what problem you are going to solve through satellite. Then that gives you a proper business model, because you know that you are going to solve this problem of the society through the satellite technology. Then there is no dearth of venture capitalist or evangelist who is going to fund you, because it is not that your idea or your expertise is going to build the satellite, as well as you need resources to build the satellite from scratch. So your idea should be such that it is going to solve at least one problem, and that is not that without that, with that problem also you can survive. Problem should be such that most of the time I will call it toothache problem. The way toothache happens, that anyway the moment it starts you have to go to a dentist. So same kind of problem you should identify and try to solve with the satellite technology. Definitely the scenario, at this present environment is so good. If you ask money of 1 lakh, people are there to give you 10 lakh. So that kind of environment is there, will be successful.
Yes, sir. So next question is, how has ISRO changed in the past 5 years? What changes do you predict will happen in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so you can see in last 5 years, our focus has moved from that only from the communication as well as the remote sensing satellite to interplanetary missions as well. So that's why you have seen that there was a Chandrayaan mission and then Mangalyaan mission, and then we have started working on Gaganyaan, where we are trying to send a man to space, an Indian man or woman. In fact, that's why its name is human space flight. We have not called it as a manned space mission. We have called it as a human space mission. And we are consciously trying to send a woman actually, in fact, in the first flight rather than man, so that we can show the world that yes, in India, we provide equal opportunity irrespective of the gender. So anyway, I'm not the selection board, but definitely that is the priority given by ISRO, and let us see what will happen. So these changes in the past 5 years. Now coming to the next 5 years, what we are seeing. When I'm talking to you, already you might have heard that there was an unlocking of Indian space sector by government of India. So till now, only ISRO was the sole provider of space activity or owner of space activity in India. But now onward, ISRO will be one of the players who is going to provide space product as well as services, along with non-government entities, along with startups. There is going to be a formation of, there is being already formed, that is called in-space board, where each of these three major players, ISRO, non-government entities, as well as startups, they have to go and apply that they want to build this satellite in this particular band to solve or to meet the requirement of this particular user. So now you see, in one single decision, startups, non-government entities, and ISRO, they all are now on a same level playing field. So all have to go to one single agency to justify the need and requirement of building satellite. And all these three major players, they can utilize the facilities available at ISRO. Now they are not facilities of ISRO. These facilities are being called as a national facilities. Anyone can use these facilities, irrespective of whether he or she is from ISRO or not. Another important is launch manifesto is also going to be integrated. Any launch happening in India, even ISRO has to take the permission to fix a slot. So one single coordinating agency will be there who planning which entity or unit is going to launch satellite at which particular time. So everything is streamlined and a level playing field is being created. And I see a very, very bright future for youngsters like you, who is having a risk-taking capability as well as passion who work for space technology, I don't see this kind of environment was there few years back. This has happened now. Tremendous amount of potential is there in the coming future. Next question, please.
Yes, sir. So Prasad wants to know why during re-entry of satellites, modules burn, but while launching, they don't.
Yeah, very good question. What is happening when you are launching from ground, when you are going to space? What is happening? You are going from higher pressure to lower, because in space there is no pressure actually, there is a vacuum. You are going from higher pressure to a lower pressure. Whereas when you are re-entry is happening, you are coming from a vacuum to a high pressure environment. So when you are re-entering with a very high velocity, what is happening? In environment, there are molecules are there, air molecules are there. So when you are re-entering at very, very high velocity, you are simply rupturing the bonds among the molecules. When those bonds are broken and electrons, protons, they are being created. So in fact, there is a plasma creation is happening in the environment when you re-entry. And because of this, huge amount of energy is going to be when you see any bond is broken, you might have read in the chemistry, huge amount of energy is going to be generated. Correct? The same thing is happening here. When you are entering at very high velocity, your atmosphere is going to be broken, molecules, bonds are going to be broken, huge amount of energy is going to be. Now this energy has to dissipate somewhere, but there is no medium available. So this energy is going to be dissipated in the form of heat on the vehicle which is re-entering, or the satellite which is re-entering. That's why as high as 3000 degrees centigrade temperature is created, and you can imagine most of the material at 3000 degrees centigrade, what will be the scenario. So that's why if you want to have a successful re-entry, you have to develop thermal protection system which can withstand this 3000 degrees centigrade temperature during the entry, so that inside the electronics, as well as suppose any human being is seated inside that, they are being with this very, very high temperature. So that's why you might have seen that Columbia disaster. What happened? Only one tiles was broken and it fell down, but that was catastrophic. So it is like your Chakravyuh only. You can go inside, but coming outside is a totally different ball game. I hope I have explained in a very simple manner and you could understand that.
Yes, sir. So our next question from Divan Srivastava is, what are the applications of control system engineering in satellite?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, when you are launching the satellite and when it is there, the orbit. So there is a one intended orbit, whether you are in 36,000 kilometer orbit for communication purpose, or in a 600 kilometer orbit for remote sensing purpose, or taking pictures. So those kind of things, for every orbit, there is a orbit, well-defined orbit. When you are putting your satellite in the orbit, because of atmospheric drag, in space there is no atmosphere, but still you can see that there is a plasma, which is there is a coronal mass ejection happening from sun, and there is a plasma environment in the space where electrons, protons, as well as heavy ions are there, and they are bombarding continuously on the satellite. And because of that, the velocity of the satellite is changing continuously. This velocity is changing, their orbit is going to be changed. But whereas you need continuously your satellite should be in the intended orbit, means there is a deorbiting phenomena is happening. So you have to identify the error with respect to my intended orbit, how much my satellite is drifted. That is finding out the error between the intended orbit to the actual orbit. So this error voltage has to be passed on to the thrusters, or we will call it as a AOC, actuator and control electronics. Okay, so actuators, they are you are going to find these errors through the sensors, and then control electronics generate the error signal, and this error signal is fed to the actuators. Actuators is mostly you can see thrusters. So you know that error is going, it is like your ignition system you might have seen in your vehicle. Suppose you have to go out, then your fuel, I mean that burnt fuel is coming backside. So that kind of thrusters will be there. So you have to ignite the thruster such that it fires in the opposite direction of error. So when it fire, whereas suppose error is in the east direction, you have to fire the thruster such that satellite is moved in the west direction. So then you will be, and that too precision is such that you have to fire thruster only such a precise mechanism that how much error is being generated, you have to correct that. If you are firing more time or with more velocity, what happens? You will be correcting the error and then you will be creating another error in the other direction. So this kind of precision is required, and this continuous monitoring of the deorbiting of the satellite, continuous firing of the thrusters is required with the help of control electronics. So this is the major job of a control engineer, to define all this algorithm so that you can find out the error signals. You can find out the error first and foremost, then generate a error voltage. This error voltage has to be fed to the actuator systems, and accordingly actuator system should correct. As soon as this correction is done, you have to shut off all the things. So this is the job of a controller. Very, very simple way.
Very well explained, sir. Now, our next question is, what about electromagnetic launching pad? Electromagnetic launching pad, asked by Gaurav Soname.
Yeah, actually, this Bellatrix, if you have known this Bellatrix, this space startup is there. So they are working on the propulsion system, which is on an electromagnetic principle. This is the same thing. Means you are trying to use the microwave energy in place of chemical. 1 second. Hello. Yes, Vinay. Hello, sorry, there was a phone call, no problem. So I was explaining that it is the same thing. They are trying to replace the chemical propulsion system with the electromagnetic propulsion system. Concept is same. Have to generate using electromagnetics. Again, ionization needs to be created, and from thruster rather than plume, chemical plume, electrons will be ejecting out, and those electrons, because mass of electron is very, very benign, there is a particular terminology called specific impulse, ISP, specific impulse, and this specific impulse is inversely proportional to the mass of the chemical or the electron. So if you see, for any chemical there will be some mass will be there, whereas when it is a mass is replaced by mass of electron, and it is inversely proportional, so a specific impulse is going to be enormously high. So that concept is being used. So there will be a kind of gas inside the propellant, propellant tank, and using microwave energy, that gaseous environment is going to be dissolved in ion format, and electrons ejections will happen. When electron is ejecting very, very at very high velocity, and mass of electron very small, so a specific impulse is going to be very, very high, and generated will be much higher. with respect to the chemical propulsion system, and this is the methodology we have to use when we are trying for deep space missions, because that much amount of chemical propellant we cannot take it. So if we have to reduce the size of our satellite system, we have to go for this kind of a propulsion system.
Yes, sir. Now, Prasad Nandore asks if a launching is to be done, who passes the time range so that the launch vehicles and satellites won't collide with the ones already positioned in the orbit?
Pardon me, can you repeat again?
Yes, sir. If a launching is to be done, who passes the time range so that the launch vehicles and satellites won't collide with the ones already positioned in the orbit?
Very good question. So there is an international union is there. So and each and every space object being monitored continuously 24/7, and their data is being recorded. So that's why you might have heard or you might have read in newspaper, they will call it as a terminology launch window. So based on this space object, every day from our launch pad or any launch pad, any country or space agency knows that this day I am having this much amount of time window or launch window when I will be launching. Then we are ensuring that we are not hitting with any other space object. So this is an international cooperation, and at all these space objects which are more than 3 mm, more than 3 mm space objects, they are continuously being monitored on 24/7 basis, and depending upon their location, every day launch window is known, and then accordingly we have to launch within that launch window, and so that we can avoid this collision what you are asking.
Yes, sir. Now, the next question asked by Nikita. Please enlighten us on how will ISRO deal with future technological advancements like fifth generation and beyond in terms of satellite communication.
Can you repeat again, please? Few words I missed.
Yes, sir. Nikita asks, please enlighten us on how will ISRO deal with future technological advancements like 5G and beyond in terms of satellite communication.
Yeah, very good question. So what happens? Space technologies, they are very conservative actually. We are not very positive about future technologies. You see that most of the nations which are using space technologies, because we cannot take any risk, we have to send a well-proven technology in the space, because there is no mechanism after sending those satellites. Suppose any problem happens, we cannot go and rectify. Whereas in the case of ground systems, suppose you have installed a mobile tower in Pune, your Pune, there is a fort, I can tell. So there is suppose in that fort you have installed a mobile tower, and after some time, after 1 week or 2 weeks, you found out that there is a problem, you can simply go identify the misbehaving component, you can replace with a new one, and job is done. Whereas in the case of satellite technology, one satellite is, and for communication purpose, it has to be in the geostationary orbit. And suppose after launch you found out, because of this technology which is not having any heritage, that is failed, then entire amount of 500 to 600 crores what you have spent is waste. So that's why we will work on the modern technologies continuously. We will have several iterations on ground, several tests will be doing on ground, and then only when we are fully satisfied, we will be sending those technologies in the orbit. So that's why here only nano satellites, pico satellites, or student satellites, they play a major role in reducing this time. Because suppose you have made a nano satellite, expenditure is less than a crore. You send in the orbit to test it, and then get the con, that will serve as a big boost for using these technologies for the satellite. But yes, now coming to the 5G technology, ISRO is working towards 5G technology. In fact, we have already sent satellite. Here, what we are doing mostly, we are trying to increase the data rate which is required for your 5G communication purpose. But one should be very, very clear when we are talking about 5G technology that latency should be less than 1 millisecond, which is not possible with the satellite because your satellite is going to be a 36,000 kilometer communication satellite. So that travel time itself is more than 1 millisecond. Signal going from ground or from the satellite. So latency requirement is not going to met for real-time application. That is the major bottleneck for satellites when you are using for communication purpose. Necessarily, you have to devise a system so that you can bring the satellite in the closer, smaller orbits like 500 kilometers or 600 kilometers, or in an orbit where your time latency, which is a requirement for 5G communication, is reduced less than 1 millisecond. Then only it is going to be. But yes, for backhaul purposes, suppose like these days Netflix and other things you are seeing where on-demand video is there rather than online video, means there is no real-time communication. So for your 5G backhaul kind of thing, satellites is pushed. You can send a very, very high definition data to satellite, and then that data is retransmitted from the satellite to all the local stations which are having cloud, so they can store that information as and when user wants those information to be, suppose any picture you want to see in the high definition, then you can use it. So this kind of applications are really right now work is going on rather than real on-time communication using satellite for 5G. Thank you.
Yes. So we would want to know how did your early career choices lead you to where you are now?
So for me, it is a very, very straightforward because I joined as a MTech and my MTech was in RF and microwave. So RF and microwave throughout India that time when I joined ISRO, only ISRO, DRDO, and companies were working. And even that time, ISRO was a well-respectable name. So my choice was very simple that I have to go to ISRO and I have to work for this. And whenever you are, should know that initial years are very, very. I have seen guys now they will be joining one company within 1 year they will join second company. That is not the way to grow in a long term. You join if you see that rather than money, what kind of work. If you are satisfied with your work, try to learn as much as possible. Devote at least some 5 years time that and that knowledge because initial years will be having tremendous amount of energy as well as learning instinct. I will tell that you want to learn everything. That kind of attitude is there. Those 5 years they will really shape careers. And once you are well versed for one field at least, then try to hop the jobs and then you will further. So initially when I joined, I was knowing that what I have to do that I have concentrated on increasing the expertise as well as skills, and then what I can say path was not simple. Please try to focus on initial 5 years of professional career when you are graduating from a student.
Rightly said, sir. So we would also want to know what is the biggest risk in terms of decision making that you have taken while you were working.
Yeah, biggest thing is because your any decision which you are making, if it is right, choose. But if wrong, then you bring the nation's pride as well as taxpayer money and I want. So that kind of pressure will be always there when being with satellites. So we have to be very, very careful before doing anything. At least sometimes you have to think over that whatever process or decision or design you are going to implement, what will be the impact, and then you have to always think about all the failure modes also of a process or your instrument, a payload, what. So we should be very, very careful in that. So all the failure modes needs to be analyzed. Also, by design, you have to ensure that there is no single point. Single point failure means even if one path fails, there is an alternate path is available so that your entire system is survived. That is called redundancy. So that's why in space business, we will be redundant systems also along with the main system. Suppose main system fails, automatically that entire process will be switched over to the redundant system. It is like having co-host, like Vaishnavi's or my communication or network is not good, somebody automatically is taking over and running this show.
Yes, sir. So how are the objects in the orbit being monitored as they are not communicating with us? Which instruments are used to track them accurately?
Yeah, so they are called multi-MOTR, multi-object tracking radars. So radars are being used because the radar concept is there. You have to send a pulse signal and it will hit that particular object and returns back. So using and then read how much time is being taken from when you have sent that pulse and coming when it came back. So that will send you the range, or means how much distance it is away from your location, as well as Doppler will give you the information at which speed in which direction it is moving. So MOTR radars are being used for tracking these objects.
Yes, sir. So, sir, we would move to our last question for the day.
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What has helped you to get where you are in the forefront? And what is one piece of practical advice that you would give to anyone who wants to set off in the similar direction and is just starting out in this field?
Very good question. So I will just quote people quote which I follow in my life. One was father of Indian space, Vikram Sarabhai. That we always think that one should be second on applying technologies for betterment of humanity. So when you are trying to do anything, you should think that you should not be second to any person. You should be always first. That is the motto for you. You will be striving for excellence. Second important quote I will quote, which I usually follow along with the first one, is from Vivekananda. He told, Jagrat Prapya Varan Bodhat. Arise, awoke, stop not till the good achieve. So I have followed these two things. I request if you can follow these two things, that you should not be second to anyone. You should be always first one, and then try to work as hard as possible. Believe in yourself. Stop not till you achieve. Definitely there will be sometimes delay in achieving the goals, but don't get disheartened. Definitely you are going to achieve by pursuing goals very, very objectively and honestly. That is another. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So on behalf of IEEE Pune section, I thank you again for gracing this session by your presence. Surely your knowledge and insights that you have shared with all of us today will definitely help us to make informed decisions in our near future. Thank you so much.